This is Personnel Committee meeting on May 12th at 4:31 p.m. We'll start out with the roll call. Alder Galvin is here. Alder Dorf.
Here.
Yeah, you can see he's here. Alder Corpus Dax.
Here. He's muted. That's why you can't hear him.
I'm here. All right. Approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, on to the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look over the minutes?
Move to approve.
All right.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion to approve and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. All right, on to regular business. Consider action on the request to fill the resiliency coordinator position and all subsequent vacancies resulting from internal transfers. Staff.
So you have the memo that's attached to the packet here. It talks about the resiliency coordinator. We did send it out to our consultant to look at the job responsibilities and to place it in our pay schedule. So the pay grade they suggested was pay grade J, and you see you have step 1 through step 4 is the hiring range that we would look to hire someone at. So that's $59,300 to $64,521. And then I did attach the job description that goes over the responsibilities for the position. And then in the memo, it talks about the fiscal impact. So the mayor's office through Chief of Staff Jeffries did receive a grant from the Fund for Lake Michigan. I think I don't have the complete total, but I believe it's about 200,000, maybe a little less than that. So we have split out here the percentage of pay from the grant and the pay from the Stormwater Fund. So you see it's over 3 years because the grant is for 3 years. And year 1 will start from the date of hire. So we would expect if we recruit and hire, I would expect maybe 30 to 60 days from when it's approved. So the first year, there would be about around $47,000, give or take, that would come completely from the stormwater. It would come from 100% the grant funds. And then the start of the budget for 2021, we then would see how much we want to pay from stormwater for the year of 2021, and then have that roll over to the next 2 years. So are there any questions about the position or about the fiscal impact on it?
I don't have any. Anyone else on the committee? Alder Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Director Fault. And as I was reading the position description, I'm trying to recall back to the budget discussion, of course, and the thing that had kind of emerged that this position would likely be responsible for helping with the development of certain plans, I think, to address flooding concerns in the community. And there's a lot of mention in the position description about sustainability initiatives as well. Could you just maybe talk us through about what that means? I'm trying to get a sense of what types of projects is this person going to take on day to day that maybe, that we're not currently addressing with our existing staff. I just kind of want to understand that component.
Sure. I know we do have Director Grenier on the call, and I believe we have Chief of Staff Jeffries. I don't know if either of them want to address it or if they want me to go ahead and address that.
Yeah, Joe, I'll start. So Alder Johnson, essentially this person would be, what is not getting done now is really an implementation of different types of green infrastructure around the city. So the stormwater utility manager and the director of the public works do some of those things. There's a whole host of other things that we can be doing. I have been participating in webinars and seminars around, for instance, stormwater trading credits, other types of funding, how we also have another grant from the Great Lakes Champions, is a grant paying a consultant to look at our ordinances to make sure that we can implement green infrastructure. And green infrastructure is a lot of different things. So that means not only detention and retention ponds, green roofs, it also means permeable pavement. It means also incentives for developers, incentives for private entities, buybacks, giveaways. So there's a lot of things that this position will do, in addition to, very importantly, working with community members, because the implementation of some of these installations and appurtenances and different ways of thinking requires community buy-in. And so that is something else the position would do.
Okay, so do you envision that it's all still focused around flooding and flooding? The reason I asked that question, of course, is stormwater utility being responsible for funding a portion of this role. I just didn't know if the expectation when we talk about sustainability is this position would work on things like solar power.
So flooding is a part of water issues. So there's water quality as well as water quantity. So, and sometimes those two things work together. Would this position be helping to also start some initiatives in solar? So this person would be managing the Sustainability Commission. And Sustainability Commission has a few items they'd like to tackle, one of which is green energy.
Okay, and so is that, so two things then, because one, I mean, when we look at the two different funding sources on this particular position, one is stormwater. And I just, I want to make sure that we're in compliance with how we're using stormwater fees and that we're not using stormwater fees to fund things like solar power if it's not allowed. I don't know if it's allowed, so it's really more of a question. And then the second component is, what are the requirements and outcomes of the grant? And how, I guess I'm just not sure what the outcomes are, expectations, right? Usually when you get a grant, you have to do certain things, and I'm just not sure what those things are.
Right. So the grant funds 75%, the way that it was originally written, 75% of the grant funds the position the first year, second year 60%, third year 50%. So the Fund for Lake Michigan is a fund that was created by a lawsuit in Milwaukee. And that had to do with water quality in Milwaukee. So they're very interested in water issues. They are also interested in resiliency and sustainability overall. And so the position, the purpose of the position is to get some of these things going here in Green Bay.
Okay, and so again, I go back to, and I'm going to admittedly be grasping at, what sustainability initiatives are. Solar power is one that came to mind. I'm trying to think. They recently took up the issue of like no mow May. Are those funding sources going to be able to cover work on initiatives like that? Will we be in compliance?
In compliance with the stormwater utility, obviously, the portion of the work that the stormwater utility funds of the position could be aimed at water quality and flooding. As I said, the Fund for Lake Michigan, 75%, 60%, 50%. So.
Okay, so that the grant, it sounds like, has some more flexibility with working on a broader spectrum of initiative.
Yes, keeping in mind that the Fund for Lake Michigan is aimed at, as I had said, water issues.
Okay, and then is this a 3-year?
Is this a what?
This is a 3-year grant, is that correct?
It is. It is.
Okay, and one of the things that I would maybe suggest, and Director Faulds and perhaps Chief Staff Celestine or Jeffries as well, if you want to respond to this. One of my fears, like any new position that you create, is if when it's tied to a funding source like a grant, that grant goes away, and then city government has a tendency to raise levy taxes or fees to help retain positions, because once you know someone and they're part of your organization, you want to do everything to keep them. Is it possible for us to label this position as a limited term employee so that once the grant funding expires, that it really forces us as a council to reconsider the merits and the value of retaining the position. I'm not saying that there's not value there. I'm saying that I think it's worthwhile for us to ensure that we reevaluate it when that funding stream expires.
And I will certainly let Director Fault answer the question about limited term employment. I will say that part of the expectation of the position is for this person to find funding for some of these installations, as well as funding for the position. So that's the expectation.
Yeah, and I think what we'll want to do is, limited term is, I think, typically less than a year. And we know this position will be for at least 3 years. So I think when we're looking at candidates and hiring candidates, we'll want to make it clear that it's part of their expectation to have funding sources for the position, because it may not be a position lasting longer than 3 years if you don't have funding for it. I think we'd make that clear to the candidates.
So from your perspective, I mean, I understand that LTEs are usually less than a year, but I've seen them sometimes where they extend longer, right? Where you can hire and say this is a 3-year term. Is there any disadvantage to us doing that? And again, my only purpose with that is to say that 3 years then, when the funding expired, that it just puts us in a position to really have an important dialogue around, is this something we want to continue to fund through the levy, raising stormwater fees, whatever it might be, versus, I guess, letting the position expire, I guess.
So I guess when we talk about a limited term employee, that's an employee that typically works for less than 52 weeks out of the year, and they're not eligible for fringe benefits, but they're still eligible for the holidays and holiday schedule. So that's where I'm saying, if we call it a limited term position, then they're not going to get fringe benefits, and it's supposed to be less than a year. That's why I wouldn't, I guess, describe it that way. But I do understand what you're saying in the sense of, if we don't have funding for it, that's the expectation that we won't move forward after, 3 years or something like that. So that'd be my concern about describing it as a limited term position because of that.
Okay, no, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think obviously to try to qualify candidates for this important work, I mean, we want to be able to offer those fringe. I just want to make sure that, we're making an appropriate decision at the 3-year mark. If again, it's the product warrant continuing to invest when that grant is gone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what's kind of the process, I guess, for how that would normally work?
I'm sorry, the process for what?
Yeah, so when the grant expires, would it just come through in the budget process to say, hey, we're going to fully fund this through stormwater, or we're going to fund a portion of it through the levy? I mean, would that be the expectation? Is that's how that would be addressed?
That's my understanding at this time. I'm not sure if Chief of Staff Jeffries has a different understanding of that.
That is my understanding as well.
Okay. So as long as I know that there's that opportunity to engage in that dialogue in 3 years, I'm good. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Alder Dorf?
As long as we're not talking about limited term employee, I'm fine, because I know they don't get health benefits, they don't get WRS, and we would not be able to get a very good candidate. Plus, it's kind of cheating when you really are having them for 3 years, not just 1 year. So are you ready for a motion on this?
Well, let me check. Does Alder Corpus Dax have any questions or concerns?
I do not.
Okay, I just have a few questions, I think, for Joe. And I understand Brian's concern, because there's a lot out there that I think a resiliency person could address. And the easy ones are solar or renewable energy sources. But also I was kind of surprised, a lot of comments lately from some of my constituents about the status of the pollution in the East River by their homes, and about runoff from fertilizer, whether it be from agriculture or from urban sources. But there's a lot of other things we can be talking about. We have flooding, and we have a lot of surface cement and asphalt. And so there's things like that where we could be having new ordinances or procedures, people to have different kinds of driveways and parking lots and that can absorb the water more instead of having to have them go into treatment or into stormwater ponds and things like that. So there's a lot out there. And I wouldn't want someone in that position to be tied to just water, although it's huge and it's important. But as we move forward with this, is there a way of having that position somehow account for itself for the first 3 years? And I certainly want to be waiting till near the end of the third year to decide if we want to continue to source it, but something where they could show, the monies that they've brought into our community for the public and private sector to be using towards projects or savings or things like that, that could kind of say that, hey, as we get near the end of this 3 years, this is a position that it's worth it for the citizens to fund either through the levy or if they're able to find other funding sources. Is there some way of putting that into the job description?
Yeah, my expectation was,
I guess because some of us or all of us may not be here in 3 years. So those individuals that might replace us or be different people on the committee or the council may not understand where we're coming from. But I think if it's in that job position, that might better explain, what's going on and help them out in the future.
yeah, so I think if you look at the job description and the essential functions with number 1, where it says develops a strategic resilience plan with milestones, metrics, and develops outcome-based best practices, that's where I think this position, they're going to create this resiliency plan that's going to have metrics built in that I think will show the savings that they have in their plan, whether that's, savings through financial or other, environmental, improvements or sustainability metrics that they would use.
All right. Thank you. Does anyone else out there have any questions? Alder Burnett.
Thank you, Chairman. So I'm in favor of it, by the way. I think it's a good idea. I think for the first year, having 25% of the position be funded by stormwater is appropriate. Next year, more by stormwater, then the following year, more even still, to the point I think it's 50-50, half grant, half stormwater utility. As long as over the next 3 years, specifically the third year, the position spends a majority of their time, I should say at least half of their time working on stormwater utility issues, I think it's fine. What they do with the other half, I think, should be satisfied by the requirements of the grant. The stormwater management ordinance, the purpose and intent, real quick, just a short sentence. The purpose of this ordinance is to establish long-term stormwater management requirements and criteria that will prevent and control water pollution and diminish the threats to public health, safety, welfare, and aquatic environment life due to runoff of stormwater from development or redevelopment. And then there's a list of several bullet points. My point being that as long as the position works at least half of their time on these stormwater issues and aquatic life, everything that we want from the resiliency coordinator, I think we're fine. So I'm in favor of it. We'll worry about you can make some suggestions for post year 3, but as far as I'm concerned right now, for the next 3 years, I feel quite comfortable with it. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments or questions from other council members? Alder Sawyer.
Thank you, Chair. I'm basically in agreement as well, but I think with any new position, you're going to see some new I haven't seen before. So I think it's important that we look at this fairly in depth, and I think we're doing a good job with that. But there's still more research to be done, but I have a feeling that we're on the right path with this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Alder Sawyer. Any other alders or staff? I can't see if there's anyone. Is there anyone from the public here that may want to speak?
I don't believe anyone from the public
Is here.
I could be wrong. There might be one or two. Sorry.
Could we open everyone's mic just for a second and ask if there's anyone from the public that would like to speak? Are we good to go?
Yep.
Okay, if there's anyone from the public present at this meeting that would like to speak to this matter, please let us know and we'll open up the floor for that. All right, not hearing any responses, I'd entertain a motion then.
I would like to move that we approve the request to fill the resiliency coordinator position and all subsequent vacancies resulting from internal transfers.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. So we'll get on to item 2. Item 2, request by Alder Corpus Dax and Alder Dorf for the city to research and conduct a study for the term lengths of appointed officials in comparable municipalities. Determine whether the term lengths of a city appointed official should be amended to longer than 2 years, and to review city official appointments and reappointments so they do not coincide with the swearing in of a new council. Staff.
So you do have the memo attached in the packet, and it talks about the positions that are appointed by the mayor right now, and the current term length for the city of Green Bay is for 2 years. And then it does have the chart in there that talks about the other comparable municipalities, and that their term length is indefinite. And then it talks about how they're appointed by, but then it also talks about the removal of the positions, because I think it's hard to talk about the term length if you're not talking about the removal process as well. So currently at the city of Green Bay, the positions are appointed by the mayor, and they're also can be removed by the mayor at will at this point. And then also can be removed by the common council for cause. And then there's a little bit of variance between the other municipalities. Some can be removed by the mayor at will and by the common council for cause. Then others have a city manager type position where the city manager can remove them. So I think it was about a while ago, I guess about maybe a year ago, I reached out to the League of Municipalities and asked if, why the statute was changed, because the statute used to provide that the removal had to be for cause by the common council, but then it got switched to allow the mayor to remove at will. And the thought process was it was changed to help save on the financial costs of these hearings to allow the mayor to remove at will. So if you have any questions on this, we really don't have a recommendation at this point. There's the 2-year term just started, so it really isn't time of the essence for this matter. So it's really up for your discussion and for us to discuss also the second part, which is Alder Corpus Dax's thought on whether or not these positions should be appointed, in May or June or a different date.
Okay, I'll start out with Alder Dorf.
Well, and I think part of that is going to depend on if we do a term length, such as all these other cities have, which is an indefinite term length, where you're only removed for cause or at the will of the mayor, then doesn't it become a moot point? Then there aren't appointments every 2 years, right? Or every 5 years or whatever.
Correct.
Director Falls, correct?
Yeah, to a certain extent. That's how it would work. And then obviously if someone left the city or if the mayor wanted to appoint someone else, then it'd just be appointed at the next common council meeting.
So, I guess I want to refer to Alder Corpus Dax. Does it feel like we almost have to decide one thing first before we decide, when it would happen?
I think so. If we're going to have a term limit, then we would have to decide that first before we decide whether or not we need to change the date in which they get reappointed. Director Fultz, do you know when we set the term limit of 2 years? Or how long that's been in practice?
I do not. We were trying to look into that, and the last change to our ordinance was in 2004, and it was something minor. It wasn't in regards to this, but we have not. So I know it's before 2004 at least. So it's been some time, but we just don't have a good record keeping system of our ordinance. But we have been looking into it to try and answer that question for you.
Alder Johnson.
Just a question, Director Faulds. It says in here that the city of Green Bay can be removed at the pleasure of the mayor or by the common council for cause. Do you know what the policy or the ordinance is around the removal for common council to take action on that? I mean, I've noticed some cities are 2/3, some are 3/4. Do you know what Green Bay is?
I would have to double check the statute on that. So what the city of Green Bay, what we do is we've adopted the removal procedure based on state statutes. So I think it is 2/3, if I remember correctly. I believe it's more than a majority.
And does state statute also define how that process works?
Yes, it's either in the state statutes or either just by case law and how that process works. And I believe the state statute is Wisconsin State Statute 17.12.
Director Falls, if the mayor decides to remove a person from their position and he doesn't have to have cause, does the council still have the ability to vote like we do for the approval of those positions every 2 years?
No, they would not. The person would just be removed at the pleasure of the mayor, and then the person would be removed.
So there's nothing the council could do to stop that removal if they felt that it wasn't correct?
No, not based on the statute.
Okay. Well, I'll be honest. My personal opinion is I like the idea of kind of call it a review every 2 years of those people in those positions. You can certainly get good people in there who have a lifetime appointment, but I think it's good for us to be reminded every 2 years who these individuals are if they're up for reappointment. I think it's good for us to kind of think about what they've done over those last 2 years. So I have no problem with it being up for review every 2 years. But to Alder Corpus Dax's concerns, I think if it's going to be up for review every 2 years, I think it should be that reappointment should take place after the new council is seated, so that they have time to look at the bio for those individuals, and if they have any questions or concerns, or if they've heard any questions or concerns during when they were running for office, either for first time or for re-election, that can be addressed before that happens. And that way, I think it'd be fair for everybody to have a well-informed council voting on these positions. Perfect.
So I would not take the same view. And I'm looking at all of these cities that certainly don't do this every 2 years. Not to say that there shouldn't be some oversight by council, but I don't know that their appointment approval should be up to council. The mayor should be able to appoint his staff and work with his staff. And if there are concerns, then there would be the ability for council to have input to the mayor, just like any other employee. And there would be a way for a person to have a plan of assistance, for example, or to have expectations. But I don't feel the need to put people in the position of not knowing if they don't have a job every 2 years. I mean, they're at-will employees anyway, so they actually.
What positions are we talking about here?
Directors.
All the directors.
Directors. Okay, I'm sorry.
What did you think it was?
I was on a different tack there for a second.
Okay.
So,
so start over again then.
Okay, I'm sorry. I thought we were talking about a broader picture.
No.
comes to the directors, I do like a review process, but I think that if we're going to be appointing new directors, if we stay with the 2-year plan, I still think it should happen after the election, like a month or two after. But having them up for every 2 years, I mean, they're at-will employees. So I think anytime a council member or the mayor or anyone else had a concern about their work, that can certainly be brought forward, and we can then follow the processes that are in place to remove them or to make changes or adjustments to that, what that person is or isn't doing, to continue on in their job. But I do understand, if I wanted to be hired as the police chief or the Department of Public Works or whatever position, every 2 years, should you start sweating? Should you start working harder at as you get towards that 2-year mark? Or should you be relatively secure in your position, knowing that it's not based on every 2 years, but it's your day-to-day performance and conduct that determines if your job is going to be up for questions. I see the sense of that. I'm sorry. Alder Gerlash.
I have a question for Director Faulds. What is the policy on reviewing the directors? Do they each get an annual review?
Yes, they do. All the directors get a review. And just to jump in real quick here. So the positions that are up for appointment, they're not all the directors. I have the positions outlined in the memo. It's the assessor, the building inspector, city attorney, clerk, comptroller, director of public works, zoning administrator, treasurer, director of parks, rec and forestry, and the director of planning. So it's almost all of the directors. But then also, if you look at the police and fire chiefs, they have indefinite terms. And then myself and I believe IT director are not appointed and are just employed just like the general employees.
Right, and the police and fire chief answer to the PFC. They're the ones that hire and fire them, although we can certainly file complaints to the PFC to have that looked in. Okay.
Yep, that's correct.
Alder Johnson.
Thank you, Alder Galvin. I think maybe one of the questions that I would like to have answered before I'm ready to actually support a motion would be just maybe actually being able to see the language, Director Faulds, on what it means for Common Council to take action for just cause. And then also the other piece that I'd like a little bit more information on is why, currently at least, why does council have oversight for approving some directors but not all directors? What is the logic behind that? I think as I'm looking at this and I'm just kind of reflecting on everything that's here, as long as there's a place for council, to be able to take action if necessary, I'm actually quite comfortable with an indefinite appointment. So long as, but like I said, I just want to be able to see that language and understand that language. The other piece is I do think council should have oversight with approving the appointment. That to me is a check and balance in our system of government. And so that's the piece where, again, I would like a little bit more clarification on which people are appointed and which ones are not that are currently director level. But I think once that appointment's made, like I said, I actually feel quite comfortable with an indefinite term. I don't think that that's necessarily something that department heads should have to worry about every 2 years, so long as, again, there's that process that's built in, whether it's through state statute or local ordinance, defines how that process works. And I would just like more information on that piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we can get that to you.
Any other committee members that have any questions or concerns? Alder Dorf.
The only thing I could say is I quickly had pulled up the statute because it's pretty darn easy. And it just says can be removed by Common Council, for cause. That's it. So it's going to probably have to be explanation of case law or something. It doesn't say what that is in the statute. It just says for cause.
Right. And
Is the vote defined in there, Alder Dorff?
Yes, it is. It is. It is an affirmative vote of 2/3 of all the members thereof.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. An affirmative vote of 3/4 for common council, and by any other body, it's 2/3. Common council is 3/4.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking at the same statute. That's correct.
Okay.
All right.
And I believe other municipality different, whether it's majority or 2/3, because they can change that based on their ordinance.
All right. And Director Faulds, would that person, say the council voted 3/4 to remove that person, does he have the right to fight that through into circuit court?
I believe so. Yeah. I think there's a different standard when it goes to the circuit court, but yes, I believe they could. It's going to be a due process hearing from the common council, and then they could appeal it to circuit court. I believe they could.
All right. Do any other alders have any questions for Director Faulds?
I don't have any questions, but I agree with some of the other alders here that I don't think it's necessary for us to have a term limit. We still have the capability, we have that capability there to remove a director. So having that term, having that reappointment just seems redundant. It doesn't seem necessary to me.
Okay.
So I would be in favor of it being indefinite.
Can we make a motion, or is it too soon for that?
I don't know why we wouldn't be able to make a motion unless someone has a reason why we couldn't.
I'd be more comfortable still having actual documentation brought before the committee that talks about whether or not, we continue to utilize the state statute, which I appreciate, Alder Dorff, that you've brought up, but I can't see it. And then also, whether or not it's the state statute that we adopt versus we creating our own local ordinance, even if it's mirrored after the state statute. And then the other piece that I would like more information on is how that process gets initiated if the council does want to take action, and then why is, at least right now, that not every department head is included in that process. And then it sounds like probably most of them are, but there's a few left out. So I think it would be good for us to know which ones are left out and if there's a reason why.
Does someone want to make a motion to that effect?
Like to refer to staff?
Yes.
I'll move that we refer this to staff to investigate further.
All right. I have a second.
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Hearing nothing, this motion passes unanimously. And we're on to informational. Does anyone have any questions for staff about the report of routine personal action? If not, I'll entertain a motion to receive and place on file.
Motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Our next meeting is scheduled for May 26th, 2020. I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. We'll see everyone in a few minutes.